last session of the conference. Woo! Yeah! You made it almost in one piece, right? Almost. I can't even describe how excited I am. You guys are my first CRO audience, so please be gentle. I'm very sensitive. And I can't believe how much we've learned while we've been here. You are going to go back with so much knowledge on how to drive many more leads and customers and develop so many interesting insights. But what happens when you have to do something with those insights and they have to create action? That's why I'm here. So, after the next 30 minutes, you may never present your data the same way again. It's very dramatic, I know. But to find out if that's going to be true, I want to know if this situation sounds at all familiar to you. One of your clients / VPs / bosses calls you up on the phone and he says, hey, can you come and present some campaign results to our next leadership meeting? Thanks. Now, this is a heavy-hitting group, and you want to knock this out of the park. So you are working round the clock, sifting through mountains of all kinds of crazy data, and you've distilled it into your shiny new insights. It's now presentation day, and you're just showering your executives with your nuggets of wisdom. And you take a little look around the room, and you suddenly notice that you don't have their undivided attention. Glazed eyeballs, little drool, maybe some Candy Crush Saga. I've seen it. It's not pretty. And by the end of that meeting, you're not exactly sure that your insights had the impact that you were hoping for. And after days or weeks of waiting by the phone, no follow-up, no action, you begin to worry that all your hard work has flown into what I call the dreaded data black hole. Well, if this does sound at all familiar to you, you're not alone, because this is my story. And today, I hope to shed some light on why this happens and help you prevent it. I call this session Get Their Attention, how to present your results to get the results in your organizations. But first, a little backstory. A few years ago, I came across some very disturbing site search data on our website. I saw that the vast majority of people using site search left right after the first time they used it, which is not a good sign. And I really wanted my executives to take action on this, but I was determined not to let this fly into the black hole and watch them turn into the Walking Dead in front of my face. So I decided to go on a 3-year philosophical journey to find answers to this very deep metaphysical question. Why do bad things happen to good data? You know? I know you know what I mean. And I would go on to find all kinds of answers to this question, but the one that I found at the root kind of surprised me, and we have heard about this thing all week. I'd like you to meet your audience's brain. You know, this giant bundle of things that we've been talking about with our customers, understanding how to get in our customer's brain. This may be hard to believe, but your boss and your VPs and clients, they actually have one of these too. I know, that sounds crazy. It's true. And understanding what makes this tick is what's going to get you noticed and indispensable in your work. It's knowing things like when they sit down to listen to you, you have less than 8 seconds to keep their attention. You actually have a longer window of opportunity keeping one of these guys entertained. Who's still listening to me? Oh, wow, you got time for stronger coffee. It's also knowing things like the act of repetition is what commits your information to their long-term memory. Now, I don't know about you, but I was clueless about this stuff. I wasn't using these principles to present my information. You know, when you walk into an analyst role, no one sits you down and says, hey, by the way, when you go in that room, this is what they're really thinking. Hey, I don't care about what you do all day. Could not care less. I want you to show me how to move my business forward. And I want to show me in a way that I understand quickly and easily, and in a way that makes me want to act. That's the key. Now, I didn't know any of this stuff, so because of that, my presentations were failing two very important goals. The first is to maintain the attention of my audience, and the second is to be memorable enough to make them want to act. My goal for you is that by the end of this session, you'll have a couple new tools in your toolbox to really make a difference and help you and your data stand out. Now, I could talk about this stuff for days, and I do, but more on that later. But time is of the essence, so what I've done today is I've distilled some of the most important actionable tips that you can make starting on Monday that are instantly going to transform how you present your data. And I call them the 3 pillars of presentation enlightenment. And there's going to be a little bit of fun, tough love along the way. And just a little bit of housekeeping for Twitter before we get started. I would love for you to CC me on any tweets at Lea Pica, and of course, once again, the conference hashtag. You ready to get started? Are you ready to get started? All right, there we go. Okay. All right, the very first pillar in our journey to enlightenment is to be your audience. How many of us, when we're preparing to present to people, really take ourselves out of our own shoes and put ourselves in the shoes of your audience? So your client or whatnot is asking you to present campaign results. I don't know about you, but I get very vague requests like this all the time unless they're about a specific test. And it's your job to help put context around that and add that value to your relationship. Try to think of them as your therapy patient. You know, what's keeping them up at night? What are their dreams and aspirations? That's how they're going to bond to you, you know? You may find out, you know, what he's really saying. You know, you have to ask him, or you have to imagine him asking, what do I really want? You know, you may find out that they have to cut marketing budget this year and they want to know what's going to be a more efficient channel. But I guarantee that if you ask them while they're on the phone, they'll be happy to tell you. There's no fear here. It's just going to help them. Okay, this is the next very important question to ask your stakeholder, and that is, who else is attending? Are we talking like a high-level C-suite or a more tactical marketing group? This is really important because you want to tailor your tone and your content not to talk over anyone's head. And I know no one in this room has ever gotten too technical with a client and totally confused them. So you really want to avoid that. Just me, it's just been me. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about when you're early in the presentation process is takeaways. Takeaways are key takeaways, key learnings, the thing we take away. I really don't know where this word comes from. But it's important to think about how you're going to frame those early in the process for later down the line. So I have this sign in my backyard on a tree just like this, and it says, on this site in September 5th, 1782, nothing happened. I love this sign because it kind of hits home for me for when I'm observing people present analytical insights. You sometimes feel like nothing did happen. You know, the earth didn't move. You leave that meeting like, why did we even have that meeting? So I really want to avoid this. So always ask yourself when you're looking to frame your insights, what's the big story? You know, if you're a reporter, how would you write it? How would I write this insight like a BuzzFeed headline? You know, these are just ways to kind of think outside. Now, I'm not actually saying write a BuzzFeed headline and present it like every time someone visits our landing page, a kitten dies. That might be taking it a little over the top. But hey, you never know. Could try it. So I like to take my training workshop students through an exercise called observation to insight. It's just a little process to try to help frame insights in an actionable way. So this is how I see the vast majority of test results presented in my observations, test results. I don't know about you, but I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to hear what's next. Not really. So this is what I call a statement. It's just telling them what you're actually going to show them. This isn't actually adding any value to how you're presenting your data. How about we say, okay, landing page B had a higher conversion rate. Okay, so this is an observation. You've connected a dot for them. You've helped interpret the data for them. It's great, but can we take this a little bit further? Landing page B was a significant winner, likely due to the explainer video. Okay, this is what I would consider an insight. It tells them that this is a clear winner, so they don't have to worry about whether there was significance or not. And you've put a why behind it, and they can take action on this. Okay, let's make that the control, and then let's put it in a different place. So this takes a little practice, and there's lots of different scenarios, but I'd like you to think about this process early on. Okay, so now you know what they want. You've started framing your insights. This is the next pillar, and it's such a doozy, and it's use your presentation tools wisely. How we use these tools is very often where we start to go down the wrong path. And we end up creating a presentation that hurts us instead of helps us. And it's something we don't even think about. And you know what it's called. PowerPoint, good old PowerPoint. So PowerPoint actually has an interesting history. It made its debut on a Macintosh, believe it or not, in 1987. And it was designed to innovate on that old overhead projector and transparency method, if anyone is ancient enough to remember that, like me. And now, fast forward to today, it's estimated that PowerPoint lives on over 1 billion computers worldwide and is used to present something to someone somewhere over 350 times per second. It's crazy, right? Now, whether that's actually a good thing is kind of debatable, because with PowerPoint becoming the Kleenex of presentation tools, a global epidemic of really boring and really ugly and just bizarre presentation slides have emerged and plagued our conference rooms for years. Can we just talk about that there's a bunny and a hot dog on this same slide? I swear I didn't make this up. You can't. And it's gotten so bad that an industry journalist named Angela R. Garber actually coined the term, and you may have heard this before, death by PowerPoint. And you know what? I think it's a shame, because I don't think this is a PowerPoint problem, or a keynote problem, or a Prezi problem. It's a people problem. I hate to say it, but as a population of business professionals, we are not using this tool to its full advantage. It's a tool. Now, to be fair to us, what these tools could do a better job of is giving us more control or enforcing more control to enforce design best practices on us. But they suck at that. I checked. So it's our job to control ourselves. What is maybe one of the most important controls I can give you that will instantly transform your PowerPoints? Unload the bullet points. Okay, here's my bit of tough love. The only person in the room that wants to see all these bullet points is you, the presenter. And I guarantee if you do it like this, it will kill your presentation. I like to think of why bullet points go so wrong with this analogy. They're kind of like a trench coat flashing. You've just opened up the coat, you're showing all your goodies, and your boss's eyes are all down here, and you're like, hey, eyes up here, and it's too late, because they expose all of your information at once to them, and their brains are designed to view one idea at a time. So you really don't, this is a disturbing idea for a meeting, but this got to do it. So I was like, all right, this is a really hard thing to grasp. This was so hard for me. But I was like, why? Why do we love our bullet points so much? Well, I think on the surface, it's pretty clear. When we come into the workforce, every other presentation we see has tons of bullet points. So that's what we learn to do. And that's fair enough. But I think that what's at the root is that we use our slides like a crutch to read off of so that we don't actually have to prepare in advance. And I am telling you, this can be a huge mistake. Repeat this mantra over and over. Your slides are for your audience, not you, okay? They are not a script. They are a vehicle to deliver your message into your audience's brain. Your boss doesn't want you to read him a bedtime story. That's not why he came. He wants you to talk to him and have a dialogue. And this is just not going to do it. Now, I learned all of these ideas from an amazing book called Slideology by Nancy Duarte, and her foundational philosophy is to create ideas, not slides. Just let that marinate for a second. Ideas. An idea could be one of your test results, a theory you have, or a question that you have for your stakeholders. But the point is that every slide is communicating no more than one idea at a time. And this is a really, really hard concept to get down. Now, what this may mean is you're taking one heavily bulleted slide and you're blowing it up into a collection of smaller and digestible ideas. We have to get away from this fear of creating too many slides. It's not like we pay money for every slide that we create. So use as many as you need to communicate your ideas fully. And if you do it right, your audience will never even know because each slide is supporting you as you go. And now I need a water break. Okay. Right around now, I like to take a little pulse check because this is a lot. How are we doing? Not too crazy? Oh, okay. I was expecting like a cane to pull me off stage. It's good because I was going to keep going with what I had anyway. So this is a really tough idea, the bullet point, and I can't go through it now, but I do have a compromise for this. So if you want to check that out, I have a blog post all about it at leapica.com/betterbullets. I'd love to know what you think, but got to move on. Okay, next control I can give you to transform your presentations. Resist the fluff. Oh, as hard as that may be. So I define slide fluff as logos, watermarks, textured backgrounds, page numbers, all sorts of fluffy doodads that don't belong on your live presentation slides. This is my philosophy on company logos on every slide. I'm pretty sure that everyone in your internal meeting is aware of the company you work for. Hopefully. If not, then I can't help you there. And the problem with all this stuff is that it's really distracting, you know, and it does one job really well. It interferes with the absorption of your message in their brain. Now, I learned these principles from two amazing books by Gar Reynolds. He's the god of the stage, and they're called Presentation Zen. And one of the most valuable things that those books did for me is they taught me how to design my slides like a designer would. You know, we've heard of this practice called information design for a reason, to help our brains. But most of us are not given this information when we enter the workforce. In fact, a study done several years ago showed that of presenting professionals as part of their jobs, 7% had any sort of design training. Now, you might be thinking, I'm a marketer and an analyst, I'm not a designer, and I completely understand. But being that this is the extent of my artistic capabilities, that's me, and that mutant cockroach on the end is my Corgi. really bad. You know, I can prove that you don't have to be a professional artist to design effective slides. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. Now, speaking of art, there is one particular kind of art that never, ever belongs in your presentations. Clip art. Okay, I'm going to make this brief. Nothing says this presentation was built in 1997 better than that horrible, cheesy clip art. If you're doing it today, it's okay. It stops today. But if we want to go visual, learn to harness the power of real imagery in your presentation. I read this incredible book called Brain Rules by John Medina. You guys would love it. It's all about the brain. And one of his most important findings was that vision is the strongest human sense. You've probably heard that here. And it dates back way to our days on the Serengeti of like, don't eat those berries, and where did I put that bone, or whatever we were saying. And it's because of this, during a presentation, powerful and relevant imagery actually increases the recall of your information. This is what helps us get to goal number 1. Images are your best friend for another reason. They have the uncanny ability to stir emotion within your presentation audience. Now you might be thinking, how am I going to get my clients emotional about my stats? Well, this is where we do what everybody's talking about now, and that's learning how to tell the customer story. During a presentation, a well-told story lights up the brain like a Christmas tree. All these areas are firing. And it also gets them really psyched up to try to help your customers, which is sort of the point of being in the business. So, you know, this is lighting up no areas of the brain, except the one that wants to check their email during the meeting. So I wouldn't do it this way. How about humanizing a pain point your customers are having with an annoyed-looking person? You know, that can really create a lot of empathy for them in that moment. And how about following that up with the why? You know, we didn't know that our main sales page wasn't responsive like we thought. I love to nest screenshots, which count as great visuals, inside of the platform where they're viewed to give them context. Little tricks to help the brain feel comfortable. Now, I have really great news when it comes to imagery. Your data is imagery. Your data is some of the most powerful visual tools at your disposal. But just like your presentation tool, you have to learn to use it right. And that brings me to my third and final pillar. Maximize the absorption of your data in their brains. This is a critical skill for analysts, marketers, anyone that has to present data. And where this starts is learning how to choose the best visualization to communicate your story. Not the only one to communicate your story, but the best one. And I hate to tell you, but your data viz platforms, they don't know what the best choice is. That's a judgment call that you have to make every day as part of your job. But you don't have to do it alone. When I need some guidance, I use the Juice Analytics Chart Chooser tool by my friends at Juice, great company. And what it is an interactive little filter tool where you can select a particular data message, like comparison, distribution, composition, and it'll filter down your available options. But choosing that right one is still up to you. So if you want to check that out, you can see it at leapica.com/chartchooser. Now, when we think about choosing the best visualization, why don't we talk about the not best visualization? Can anyone shout out what that might be? I heard it. Thank you. Yes, we need to talk about pie charts, guys. Sorry. So pie charts still seem to be our favorite way of communicating parts of a whole. And this is very important type of data. Here's the problem. I see indigestible pie charts like this all the time. All the time. I can't wait until I can never present this again. And they do one thing really well. They cause your audience to do more work to interpret them, and that robs you of their attention. It's not good. And this is why. When your brain encounters a pie chart, which is a circle, it has difficulty calculating the areas inside of the segments and comparing them to each other, which is the only purpose of that chart. So it fails, essentially. So what I would say is, if you're going to do parts of a whole or categorical comparison, your best bet is always going to be a bar chart. But I could make the argument that bar charts can be just as badly abused as pies. You have to learn how to do it right. So I like to do my favorite crunchy granola closet hippie thing with my charts and detox. So what that means is not putting my data in something like this and just walking away. You're not done. It's taking certain steps to kill the 3D, reduce visual cognitive load, data labeling, uniform coloring. That's a big one. So color can have significance in our culture, especially red and green. But those colors are part of the Excel default colors for your charts. So this next mantra is so important. Oh, I'm sorry. It was really important. Okay. So the final thing here is strategic coloring. You see how I've used the strategic color to emphasize my key learning. And that story might change, which you'll see in a second. But this is the mantra I want you to think of. Don't let Excel's pukey default color palette decide what matters to your executives. Okay? So now we have our cleansed chart. But we've started by putting that boring statement title on the slide. I see this a lot. How about we change this out for an observation? Connect that dot for them. This is called a McKinsey title. And what this will guarantee is that no matter how they've interpreted your chart, your message is crystal clear. But now, maybe they care about, what's generating the most sales. Our story might change if we add context to that with conversion rate. And I've changed my use of color to adjust for my story. So I hope that makes sense. All of the books that I've mentioned today are in the handout packet for this presentation, but this is just a little glimpse if you want to grab that. And I want to take a minute to quickly recap the 3 pillars of presentation enlightenment. The first is to be your audience. Be their best friend, be their therapist, and understand what it is they really want. Use your presentation tools wisely. I didn't use anything fancy except PowerPoint for this, and it had over 120 slides, but I'm hoping you didn't notice. And finally, maximize the absorption of their data. Learning these best practice principles is going to set you so far apart from anyone else in the company and really drive your message home. So, some very interesting side effects happened when I started doing this. They actually expanded our budget for analytical capabilities, and they reactivated a dormant site search project, which allowed us to reduce our exit rate from site search by like half. It was amazing. And that's kind of what this whole game is about. I will leave you with a little wisdom from the great Aldous Huxley, and that is, facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. But I think that getting ignored sucks, and I don't want that to happen to you. So please, don't let bad things happen to your good data. You're going to go back and you're going to work so hard to develop these amazing progress in your programs. How about we stand up and pave the way for them to make a difference for your organizations, for your customers, for you. Biz responsibly, my friends. Namaste.